February has officially begun, and there are plenty of things to talk about with this new open, which are going to be massively influential for this month to come. I do suspect that February is going to be the make or break month for Bitcoin here, and we're going to find out pretty damn soon if it is indeed make. So without further ado, we just jump right into it, starting off with a revisiting of the monthly statistics. So we've gone over several statistics pertaining to the monthly or to the month of February, in the past week or two, regarding, the positive close rate, the average returns, when the low of the month typically happens. In today's video, I want to go over what I have been studying as far as the general drawdown for February. So essentially, how far down do you expect the low? Again, keeping in mind that the data that we looked at earlier this past week did suggest that if Bitcoin is indeed bullish, we expect the low kind of within this first week, actually. So what I've done here is I've gone through the full history of Bitcoin and measured the open to low of each and every February of the past. And I'll just spoil the surprise and bring up the data right here. My spreadsheets show the answer. my spreadsheets. But yeah, I found that if we include all data from all Februarys of Bitcoin's past, we actually do see a pretty nasty average drawdown at over 13%. If we bifurcate that data between positive closing, did I say Thursdays? I mean Wednesdays. I mean February's. If we bifurcate that data between positive and negative closing February's, the positive closing February's would actually bring that average down to about 8.25 almost, and the negative closing February's, of which there's only been 3 to be fair, significantly higher at close to 30%. Now, I do want to point out that in 2018 there was a major outlier right here, which still actually did close as a positive month. It was 41.75%. I'm just curious what the number would be for that drawdown if we do get rid of that one, if we just, see what would happen without it. And yeah, that number obviously goes down significantly to under 5% at about 4.87. So I'll put it back on there, but just to be aware of what it would be if we do get rid of that, because that really is like a major difference than all of the other Februarys of Bitcoin's history. But obviously we already have the open. So if Bitcoin were to play close to the downside of the positive closing months, that would be somewhere around here, again omitting that data, that would put Bitcoin maybe a low in the low $99,000 region. Of course, if it does go for the full average, including that outlier, then I suppose that goes a little bit closer to about $95,000. And if Bitcoin is going to indeed have a negative month here, well, I mean, I don't necessarily think that we have enough data here to honestly accurately look at this. But 30% down, I think that's just end of cycle stuff anyway. So, that basically brings Bitcoin back down to about $70,000. I'm not saying that it's impossible for Bitcoin to come back down to $70,000. It just, I highly am skeptical about any move below, even last month's low, especially, as continuing with the bull market this year. If that happens, I think you're looking at a year of sideways and down at best, or sideways at best, and maybe some downside as well at best if that were to happen. I'm not saying it's impossible. Just if it did, if you think Bitcoin's going to do this, very unlikely, very fucking unlikely. With like a V-shaped recovery like that. It could, go sideways for a while and then maybe continue on. And I guess that would be like a massive differential in long-term behavior for Bitcoin. But anyways, moving on from there, we should just quickly revisit the prior statistics. Again, Bitcoin February lows for positive closing Februarys typically happen very early within the month, before the first week is over on average. And if we just look at February stats in general, there are a couple of very interesting things here. One, February is actually one of the most likely to close positive months for Bitcoin at 78.5% of all February is closing positively. In fact, this number should be higher because there is data from 2010 that I could not include here because it doesn't actually have like a price attached to it, but you can very obviously see that the 2010 February did close positively. It's just we don't know how much, so I didn't include it right here. But yeah, that is pretty fucking high. And then even more importantly, for odd years, we've seen a 100% positive closing rate for February, which is just like a weird stat. But yeah, that, you know, this is an odd year. So perhaps we do go with the more bullish of those interpretations. Now, I want to state one thing before we go further into this video, because when we go further into this video, I'm going to be taking like a much more, you're going to hear me speak about a lot of bullish things, but I do want to state my concerns with price action. But you know, I do think that it is relevant here. You know, if I was just looking at the 5-day, the weekly time frame right now, I would immediately be thinking, if I was just looking at this, nothing else, I'd immediately be thinking it just tested the top side of the range, rejected the top side of the range, it's coming back down to the bottom side of the range, and we should expect to move back down to $90,000. That is there. And I do think that, you know, the price action people, or just, you know, general support and resistance people, like they do have, I mean, that is legit. And that is, I mean, that typically is the way that things work. You know, if you fail to break out, you typically come back down to that range support. But as we go on and further through this video, I do think that there's good reason to believe that if Bitcoin is indeed bullish, we expect a big fucking February, actually. So going over here to the monthly open for the hpdr, and we see that January did indeed close above the median. It closed well above, or I don't know about well above, but it closed decently above $100,000. And now the median has actually shifted pretty much to exactly where price action is at right now. It's actually a little bit higher than where price action is at right now, at 102,000 US dollars, 102,780 is what I'm trying to say. So what does that imply? Well, with Bitcoin technically opening up above it, actually. Sorry, did it open above it? Yes, it did open above it. It did open above it, indeed. You know, that would imply that we really don't expect like a deep pullback here. If Bitcoin's going to continue, I mean, maybe even where it's at right now, we wouldn't really be expecting too much lower. We'd be expecting, you know, Bitcoin to probably find the low, like I said, very early this next coming week, and to not really violate much further below about $100,000, you know, on a pullback. That is what I would be saying about this. That also does imply that if Bitcoin does pull back, you know, especially below like 90, I mean, something else completely different is going on. But for right now, this is, in my opinion, very, 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 very important that Bitcoin has reclaimed the monthly HPDR median, because anytime that we have seen that in the past, I mean, Bitcoin's generally gotten a free ride to the top side of the 38.2 level. Didn't happen right here, but that is a bit of an outlier because every other time it essentially has. You know, same thing over here on a major breakout, same thing over here, same thing over here, and so on and so forth. And we can even take that one step further by incorporating the HPDRO into this analysis as well. So I'll bring up my indicators right here and put on my drawing tools. And all I've done on this chart is marked off when the monthly HPDRO, which represents directional volatility, ticks back above and confirms above the zero read, indicating that Bitcoin is having positive momentum alongside volatility expansion. And yes, we did see that January closed on a confirmation above the zero read, so it is technically in positive territory now. And anytime that we've seen this happen in the past, which I've marked off with these red vertical bars, has been indicative of, you know, general upside, except for this time right here. I mean, this time obviously did trade, I guess, sideways, essentially. Yes, there was a big wick to the downside right here, but on a line chart, you wouldn't even notice it really. But ultimately, you know, is that a good sign? I think it's a point in the Boo Law's favor, though. I would like to see more tests on this, but, you know, it is what it is. I mean, obviously being positive is going to be, you know, better than being negative. But I suppose only time will tell on this one. Moving on from there, monthly momentum, monthly stochastic momentum has indeed continued to the upside. The new pivot is 92,730, so it did go up a little bit. That's okay. We do see that the monthly stochastic oscillator is pretty fucking high here. And, you know, when it's high, that is generally a good sign. But At some point, you're going to have the potential for major bearish divergence compared to the March highs of last year. And just as an aside, anytime that we have seen monthly momentum, get to especially the 90 level, which it is just below right now on February, those have been around macro cycle highs, actually. Maybe not exactly on the high, but pretty damn close to it. So that I still do remain with my overall belief that Bitcoin, if it is indeed bullish, we expect the next month or two to be pretty good. And from there, between maybe like the end of the the end of the first quarter and the end of the first half of this year, I would probably be expecting a top, honestly, or at least a top in like a major consolidation sideways and down for, the majority of the year, kind of similar to what we saw last year. It should also be known that the monthly 5 exponential, this red moving average right here, is all the way down at about 93 to 94,000-ish bucks, kind of in alignment with the bull market, or sorry, not bull market, but positive closing February open to low analysis. If Bitcoin did come down around there, I'd be looking for a bounce there. But I do think, just my personal opinion is that Bitcoin below 100,000 bucks is a warning signal, like a major warning signal. And if we see it below 100,000 bucks, especially after this first week of February, that to me is going to be indicative that something else is going on. But on top of this, the monthly BBWP, so representing volatility right here, actually did not confirm above the moving average, unfortunately, yesterday. So we don't have confirmation of expansion just yet. I do think that this is destined to happen. Honestly, probably this month, maybe March at the latest. And anytime that we have seen the monthly BBWP reclaim that moving average, this has been the beginning of like pretty significant moves, mostly to the upside here. But of course, in 2022, we did see a downside move, and it generally goes in the same direction as what we see on the monthly stochastic oscillator. Right now, it is positioned to the upside. So I would still be saying favor to the blue laws there, at least for now. Also, moving on, we do see that the monthly jewel over here is getting this continuation signal. So I'd say that's another point in favor of the blue laws, continuing upwards and onwards here. Again, getting really fucking high in really critical territory, is not great for the long term. So I do think that this current rally is going to be generally short-lived. That's why I do say before the end of the first half of this year, I think very likely we see a major high, and probably the high for this cycle. That's just my opinion. I can be fucking massively wrong about this. Before you leave some nasty comment in the comment section below, okay? I can be wrong. I'm happy to be wrong about it. That's just my read going off of these things. I have to be going off of something. It is what it is, man. It is what it is. It doesn't make me happy. It's just, it is what it is. And on top of this, if we go back to and revisit a little bit of yesterday's analysis, Dixie did close the month out on what is a massive long-legged doji dildo right here, which is indicative of indecision and perhaps even reversal as well. And I do think that even if you're the biggest bull on the dollar index, you're still probably looking at this as a swing high and likely to come down, although you would be looking for, the next pullback to form a higher low, maybe somewhere down around about 104.5. But still, that would imply some decent downside from here, providing another sort of tailwind for Bitcoin and basically all risk on assets. So I do think that deserves some consideration. Especially in this month of February, because I truly believe that if this market's continuing, we find out within the next, I think less than 2 weeks. If you see Bitcoin below 100,000 bucks, like by February, let's say 7th, big fucking warning flag. And by February 14th, that's going to make me really question the long-term bullishness of this asset. But for right now, a lot of important things did happen in the last 24 hours, and most of them do favor the blue laws here. It's just, I suppose we're going to be waiting a little bit. Of course, I'm going to be traveling this next week. In fact, I forgot to mention, tomorrow, I very unlikely will do the weekly Q&A. I'll actually position that for when we leave, which we're going back to America actually for a little bit of time. And that will be around midweek of this coming week. So perhaps I even drop 2 videos on that as well, but just figure it kind of makes more sense to post it on a day like that. So yeah, anyways, I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off on this video. Again, just kind of recapping here, monthly open to low drawdowns, typically around, 5-ish% in positive closing months, significantly higher in negative closing months. And again, we do expect if Bitcoin is going to be bullish, lows coming in within the first week of this month. So if you do see Bitcoin essentially making new lows by like this, especially the second week of February, I think that's a big warning signal. But if you just want like a really obvious area to be aware of, $100,000 I think is a great number right now. It's nice and easy to remember. It's a nice round even number. Is it perfect? No, but as long as Bitcoin's above it, generally going to be bullish. If Bitcoin goes below it, I think we're at least looking at a decent correction. Again, when I look at this, I really do think it is coming down. If I was just looking at this, but if Bitcoin does lose $100,000, I really would be looking somewhere around 93-ish thousand, with bounces along the way, of course, too. But I would generally be looking down around there. All right. That's where we'll end things for today. I need to get off to some sparring because I'm very excited to do that. And as always, I'd like to wish you the best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully tomorrow.